Well, hello, I'm Pastor Henry Green, and welcome to the Code. Tonight, you're going to get an opportunity to see something you'll hardly ever see in America. That's 3 generations of Black men chopping it up. We're going to establish what the code is for us, and we know we can work it out together. So I want to take a moment and allow my co-hosts just a moment to introduce themselves.
Greetings and good afternoon, everybody. My name is Tolly Patterson, aka Doc P. Sit back, relax. Welcome to the Code.
Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Code. My name is Dwayne Lloyd, aka D Lloyd, aka D81A Original. Welcome to the Code.
And I'm Pastor Henry Green. I represent what I call the plus crowd. We don't give numbers anymore. Just know there's a lot of experience there, and welcome to the Code. Well, today we've got a subject matter that is difficult for a lot of Black men, because we're talking today about to thine own self be true. And that's a difficult subject matter because there's so many images that we feel an obligation to uphold as Black men that sometimes the space that allows us to be true to ourselves is a difficult space to come by. What do you guys think about the images that are forced upon Black men?
I think sometimes it serves as a detriment to Black men because, for one, oh man, it's interesting. Today I was just, for the very first time at 51 years old almost, I started reading the Willie Lynch letter, and it threw me. It was like, wait a minute, people actually, there was someone who actually thought about the psychology of undermining the mental, disposition of Black people and Black life just to keep them in a slave mentality. And so my mind went there to as far as Black men, because oftentimes, like, Mother's Day was last week, and somebody posted a meme and it had Mother's Day and they had like wine and candlelight dinner, and it showed Father's Day and it had frozen Salisbury steak and ugly mashed potatoes. And what's interesting is that as Black men, we have a hard time trying to grasp who we are in the first place. And when you start adding all these different variables to it, how our sisters see us, how, family members, man, it can be a rough journey. It can be really, really rough. And I think some people spend entire lifetimes trying to get to the place where they understand just who they are.
Yeah, the concept of stolen identity is really tough for us.
Yeah.
Because once your identity is stolen to a degree, then you're open for imprinting. With animals, they imprint to the first thing that they see, and because they assume that's their parent, and they derive their identity from that image. And a lot of times for us, our image has been so distorted and spoken that it gets difficult to redefine it.
I think that the images of African American men in particular are very, very paralyzing. If you don't have a strong self-concept, then it'll be easy. One thing that I think that I'm thankful for that I can't ever say that I really, really, really went through was wanting to be somebody else.
Yeah.
I didn't really have the whole, I want to be like Mike. I want to be like such and such. I legitimately wanted to be like my dad. And the image that, before all the struggles and drugs and stuff like that, my father was Superman to me. There wasn't a stronger man in America than my daddy. And so, seeing how he treated my mom, how he dressed, how he carried himself, I wanted to be like Dennis. Dennis's failures put me in a position of feeling naked because, like, okay, well, who do you want to be like? So I've always held on to who my father was as a kid, and let that kind of guide me into the man that I should be. I ain't never been the one to want to be like the rappers and hang like I'm really, really unique in the fact that I believe in being myself and whatever comes with that. I think that the imprinting and the imagery that we see on TV is designed to get younger generations further and further and further and further within the truth and to embrace the fact that they should invest in being, men, no matter what your preferences are, no matter what your orientations are. The images that we're seeing right now in society are making it so okay to be so lackluster and to have no stick-to-itiveness, to have no discipline, to be microwaving your concepts, to not work hard, or to have a concept of, your future. And so I don't like that as a person who works in community and works with young people and works with businesses. That's like, why do we think that that's okay? And as society, and the crazy thing is, society isn't telling white men this. They're telling black men this.
Right.
This is the way that you should be. And those of us that are aware and conscious are like, this is dysfunctional. This is bad. You don't see these images of white people, white men doing drugs, sagging their pants, beating on their wives, having 6 or 7 women, and none of that. We don't see the images of them shooting up schools or mug shots, but you see all those negatives. And we know why, but this younger generation struggles with that. And I think that it's contributing drastically to the failure of our community.
Well, that's one of the reasons that I've supported Tyler Perry in the past. I've had those intellectual discussions with people that will talk about, some of the slapstick that he put in the movie setting us back and those discussions. But I really thought what he did in his early days was pretty brilliant, because he understands that the audience he was talking to, you just can't keep smacking them with truth.
Right.
So he would lace in 3 or 4 really sincere message moments around all of this slapstick. And so, but if you look at his characters, he has created male characters that we've never seen before.
Right.
In Daddy's Girls, show me where there was the image of a black father fighting to keep his daughters.
Right.
I mean, that was there was one where he was actually the character, and it was the wife strung out on drugs instead of the husband. So the stereotypical depiction would have been the black man was the one out there on drugs. And so it's been a blessing to me just because he's showing images that I think a lot of young black boys have never seen before.
Yeah. My mentor, his name is, and you can Google him, his name is Charles Jarrett, and he passed away in 2011. And the year I was born, 1970, he actually won a Golden Globe for Best Director. And one of the things that Charles imparted to me was, and I'm gonna do my best, Charles Jarrett impersonation here. Dwayne, what is it you want to do with your career, my boy? What do you want to do with it? Because he was from Manchester, United Kingdom, and so he asked me what I wanted to do, and I told him I wanted to write. And he was like, Dwayne, why do you want to write, boy? Why do you want to write? And I was like, I don't like the images portrayed of black men in film. And so one of the things he encouraged me to do up until the time of his death was to find my voice. And I didn't really know what that meant. I was like, what does it mean to find my voice? And what he was really trying to say is find your perspective on being a black man that's marketable. And I was like, oh, okay, got it. And so what it really took was a bus crash and a divorce, a bunch of craziness. And so now it's at a place where I am creating characters. Like, I won't say her name, but I am on the cusp of being represented by the greatest, one of the greatest agents in Black Hollywood right now. And my voice is one that talks about black men in a triumphant place.
Yes.
And so one of the issues that has been with the stuff that I'm writing is that people have never seen black men in a triumphant place. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Are
Yeah.
you serious with this? Well, what do we don't know. We don't know if what you're writing is marketable. Well, why isn't it marketable? Because we've
Right.
never seen a black man who had childhood sexual trauma evolve to a place where he's able to get help and be triumphant. We don't know if that's marketable. What
Yeah,
do you mean?
I think that is exactly the challenge, though, because, particularly with our young men, they have not been imprinted, and we say, well, you should know better and you should be able to choose your way. But I mean, do you think about how much you had to go through
Yeah, man.
to figure out who you really are? Like,
Right.
I'm thankful that at my age, I really don't have many regrets.
Mm-hmm.
But one of my regrets was when I let somebody else put their opinion on me. I was coming out of high school. I had done extremely well scholastically. Like I was seventh in my class. I graduated seventh in my class. I was a football player, but I was small until my senior year. I had a major growth spurt my senior year. Went from 5'6" to 133 pounds to 5'11" and 185 pounds over the summer. And so then all of a sudden I started getting recruited. And so because I had good SATs, I got letters from Dartmouth, Plymouth, Brown, and all these Ivy League schools. And so when I went to talk to my counselor said, I went to Crispus Attucks. He said, look, you've done well here at Attucks, but you're going to go out there and you're going to be competing with little white kids that have had subjects you haven't even heard of. And you're going to be trying to play football and you're going to end up flunking out of school. And, for me, I was like, I'm 18 years old, really green behind the ears, hadn't had much world experience. My world at that point was fairly small. This was a Black authority figure speaking to me. And I'm thinking, because I remember the application for Brown was like $750. Now, this is in the 70s. That was a lot of money back then. My family would have come up with it, but they would have had to come up with me. And I had this concept of they do all that, come up with this application fee, and I end up flunking out of school. So I'm like, okay, I'll just go to IUPUI. But I let somebody else's projection define me.
Yeah.
I had the same experience.
2 years before I understood what happened. And when I grasped I could have competed anywhere I wanted to compete, I made a commitment that day that I would never allow anybody to define my reality again. Right. And so I allowed him to change my image of myself and not be true to really who I am because I let somebody else define me.
Yeah. I remember when I graduated high school, or I was 15, and my parents were going through a really, really nasty divorce at the time, or it was like the start of it. And so, I was doing what most people do, mom and daddy arguing, so ain't nobody paying attention to me. So I'm gonna get it how I live. I'm gonna have fun, I'm gonna get suspended. And then my mom caught on. And, my mother is in the OG, sis ain't playing no games or nothing about discipline and education. She don't care. To this day, I'm scared of her. So, with the highest regard and respect, but I remember she sent me on a college tour my junior year to Morehouse. And being from Philadelphia, Black people's a normal thing. I had never seen this many white people until we came here. But I got to Atlanta, and I was amazed, like, it's Black folk everywhere. And they go over to school. and they're educated and they look like me. And I was so impressed. And I remember getting back to school, and then, you know, she sent me to Howard, and then I was done. I was like, it's over. HBCU it is. And I remember battling back because my grades were so bad, battling to get in a position to be seen and to be viewed. I remember going into our counselor and telling him that I wanted to go to Morehouse. And his exact words to me were, you know, Morehouse is for smart people.
Wow.
Now,
Wow.
white man.
Wow.
Now, I have always, my mother taught me this. I can have whatever I want, period. And that's a code that I live by. I can have whatever I want. I wasn't going to allow your small-minded, illegitimate perspective about me to determine who I was going to become. My truth was I was going to Morehouse or Howard or any other college in America because I was smart enough to be there. More importantly, because my mama said that I could be there.
Yeah.
And I believe whatever came out of her mouth was like the fountain of youth. So if Gwen said I could do it, bump it, I could do it. And so I was like offended. So, okay, cool. My truth is I could be more smarter. I could study more. What is it going to take to get into college and be successful? And so I disciplined myself. And so that the summer of my junior year, I applied. It was summer. Morehouse wasn't sending out letters. They wouldn't give me at that time. You had a paper application, so you had to write out everything very carefully, spelling right, your essay. There was no emails, no comment apps that we have now. I called them every single day for a summer, to the point where they knew who I was. Hey, Mr. Jimmy. Hey, Talvey, how are you? Just waiting on my letter, you know. And the guy was like, well, we haven't sent out letters yet. Then it was there on vacation. Same thing with Howard. And right before the middle of my first semester of senior year is when I got my letters and got presidential scholarships. And obviously I ended up going to IU because my parents were on some other stuff. But
yeah,
legitimately, my truth was I am valuable enough. My truth was I'm smart enough. My truth was that I'm brave enough. And my truth was I didn't give a care what you said because you don't determine what I get, I do. And so even though people always try to make me feel like I'm not worthy, and I have battled with those things, at the core of me, I'm not trying to hear nothing you're talking about. What you think about me is not my business, and I'm going to get whatever I choose to get. And it's a choice to go after that.
Well, but let's talk about peer pressure as it relates to being true to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, we do exist inside of ecosystems.
True.
That will put pressure on you.
Yeah. This week, man, I was, you know, I got back to my running, and one of the things that for me happens when I run is that I get these wonderful revelations about my own life, you know, as it's tied into the Bible. You know, I've learned not to try to project what God had for me onto other people. I will share it, and if it blesses you, that's great. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. And so one of the revelations that I got this week was the Lord was showing me that in the Garden of Eden, it was less about, because you hear preachers talking about, and God gave Adam a job, you know what I mean? And it's that whole thing. But it was less of what the Lord showed me this week in my run was it was less about a job, and it was more about showing Adam who he was. As long as there will be a planet Earth, a bird will be a bird, because Adam called it a bird. And so this week, I was having some issues. I won't say issues. I'll be very transparent here. Me and my mother, we've been close my entire life, and we're just in a different place right now. And I'm learning how to navigate who I am by not allowing her to impart the version of me or her version of who she thinks I am to me. And that's a difficult place. I realize it's a difficult place for my mom. I realize that because even at 51 years old, my mother still looks at me as like, this is my son, this is my baby, and I'm not a baby. And so there has to be a place where I say, okay, Lord, who am I aside from what my mother thinks I ought to be, aside from what anybody else thinks I ought to be? And that can be a difficult place to navigate because people have these concepts in their mind about who they think you are. And as God starts to reveal who you are, yes,
their woundings.
Yes. And so as God starts to reveal who you are, it'll often conflict with, the version that they think you ought to be. And so with that having been said, the producer of this show, Chris Green, he called me probably a year ago, and he said, God ain't tripping on mama's boys. And he hung up. And I was like, this Negro just called me and said, God ain't tripping on mama's boys, and just hung up. What's that mean? And it was, and now here I am now, and a year later, what Chris had imparted to me just through those brief words is that at some point, if a man, at some point, God will have a man do something that mama or daddy or sister or brother or everybody else don't even understand. And it's at that juncture, if you listen to anybody other than God, that person or those individuals become your God.
Man, that you talking there. And that's a difficult, people say that's not an easy space to hold.
It's not, man. It's hard.
It's people that you respect and you love. And
absolutely.
Because I remember when I graduated in business, and I'm entrepreneurial. I love making my own money. I always had. So when I graduated, and I went on the grind. I'm selling T-shirts. I found a business card I should have been ashamed of. It had about 10 businesses on one. Airbrush artist, DJ,
club owner.
I didn't put it all. I put it all on one card. Basically, if you pay for it, I figure out how to do it. And my dad, which is a solid man, pulled me to the side and said, son, now you done got you a good degree from the #4 business school in the country. Why are you around here hustling? And I said, Dad, because I like to work for myself. And I could hear the disappointment, but years later, I came to understood that he grew up during the Depression.
Yeah.
And so the concept of a good, steady job with benefits, just could not understand you gonna forsake that to be out in the park selling tea.
Right.
But man, I love to count money. My own money that I made that day that didn't go through a filter. And that was really true to my essence. But I had to hold that vision for a long time until I opened my first really major business, and that's when they got it.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting, the pressure that you feel to become something that everyone in your generation didn't.
Ooh, boy. Yes,
and
sir.
So I remember my cousins hanging out on the block. Like they want to hit 38th Street at the time when 38th Street on a Friday and Saturday night was the thing to do. My brothers went to college. My oldest brother did. My second oldest one did, but he didn't finish. And so I wanted to be an anesthesiologist. I wanted to be a doctor. That was my goal. But it was hard. And it was sucking the life out of me. And I remember coming home telling my mom, because my mother got a kick out of telling all her friends, my baby's going to be a doctor. He's a biology major. And I'm like, ooh, sis. Like, yo. I down a little bit, man. Because, hey, this is my third academic probation season. I'm like, a breath wasn't being kicked out. Quit telling people that. Because right now, I'll see Dr. Patterson in that form coming. And I had an epiphany one day. I was like, I'm working hard for something that I hate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. That's
Like I'm working real hard so she can say to her friends that her son is better than her friend's sons.
Come on, man.
And
Come on now.
and that's something that I didn't care about. That didn't mean anything to me. I don't even care what these people are doing. Like my daddy always called me the wild card. That's exactly what I am. I'm going to do exactly what I want to do, period. So I came home one day and I took an organizational leadership class and it floored me. And I saw Talby in flashing lights. Like God said, this is you. You're a leader. And what Satan had been trying to do was box me into a situation that would contain my leadership, that would contain my skills and centralize it when he wanted it to be broader. And so being younger, you don't understand that. So I basically was like, walked to the school to Purdue School of Science, said, hey, I'm out. Went across the street to Liberal Arts, signed up, told my mother, and she was like, I can't believe you did that.
Yeah.
Why would you do that? And I looked her in her face. I said, because I'm paying for it and I'm tired. And I've been in school for 4.5 years when I should have been done. And I'm overwhelmed. What you going to do? I'm not even worried about that. I'm going to finish college and I'm going to go and do something that I want to go do. And so that pressure the pressure really hits when you make the decision that's best for yourself and the results and the residuals don't come as quickly.
Yes, sir.
So now you begin to question the decision that you made for your own happiness, and you have to now fight against the I told you so. And so I was like, you know what, cool. I'm gonna do whatever jobs I gotta go do. I worked in warehouse. I gained all these skills and leadership qualities and skills that have made me successful and more well-rounded in my approach to being a leader because I chose to go the way that God wanted me to go. It was much more difficult, but the truth of the matter is I wasn't happy. And I didn't give a care what Gwen Patterson thought, Dennis, Irma, Tawana, Dennis, Latifa, nobody, the community. I didn't care about none of it because at the end of the day, I was walking 2 or 3 miles, sometimes in all the elements while y'all had cars and no one would take me. Or I was catching the bus in the snow and in blizzards, or, had a class at Butler University. No one could take me home. So I had to walk home and it was 1 degree below zero outside and y'all all had cars, but you were pissed because I decided to change my major. That pressure is something that for me as an adult, I don't let nobody put nothing on me like that. I will tell you in a minute, can't do it, not going to do it. And I learned that with my family.
Have to admit, though, the longer the distance is from that moment to that actual manifestation, the harder it is to hold on.
Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
When stuff starts to hit you, you be like, because then when something bad happens to you, you be thinking, well, maybe, maybe what they
maybe I heard it wrong.
Yeah. Maybe,
but you know what, to be honest, y'all, to be honest, I didn't. I made my decision and I stood in it. And I didn't give a care what nobody had to say about it. And the thing is, like, as I got older, me and my mom talked, and I said, you taught me that. I got that from you. Be clear. Do what you're going to do. We ain't always going to agree. I got that from her when I was like 8 or 9. And so my mother, we had a rule in my house.
Is though, Tavi, for a lot of people, is being able to hold on to it long.
Oh, yeah.
People.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. When you don't see it coming, when it ain't manifesting and your friends are walking across the stage. I have friends who moved out of the city of Indianapolis and just flourished. I was like, well, I guess it's my turn. And then God's like, no. And I have friends who moved and lived in cars, and I'm a planner. So I was like, yeah, I'm not moving to New York City with $500. Not for what I want to do. I'm sorry. And I'm not an actor. I can definitely perform, but I'm not an actor. And so the truth for me was my mom and my dad are not always going to be here. My siblings and I are always going to be here. And at some point, it's just going to be me and God.
Yeah.
And to your point, when things did get hard, I never questioned the decision to do what was best for me. I did question how long I was going to be on this journey. Like, where's the rest stop? Where's the water fountain? Can we rest a little bit? I'm tired. but you're intensifying the pain, you're intensifying the heat, and I don't like to be hot. And so the urgency to get through things, to understand things, and to learn things became heightened for me because I needed to get somewhere. And it took years. There were things that were prophesied to me when I was 10, 12 that I didn't see till I was 25. And then you forget about it, and then people come remind you, well, you remember that the Lord said that to you? You're like, wow.
Yeah.
So that's what that was. That's what that was.
Well, let's shift gears a little bit. How do you separate what's really the essence of you from what you've been through?
A word that I've really attached to myself to this week is rapport. And rapport is defined as a harmonious relationship between two parties where they understand each other's emotions or able to operate freely within that space. And so, and for a quick story, there's an actress that I follow on Instagram. Her name is Annabella Acosta, and Annabella's a beautiful girl, and she posted something on her Instagram about how she wanted to be known for her beauty. And I mean, she didn't want to be known for her beauty, but she wanted to be known for other things. And so I commented on her post and said, well, Annabella, as long as you're alive, you're going to be beautiful. And so I'm encouraging you to have something of substance. So when people are attracted to your beauty, they leave with more than you just being a beautiful woman. And so later on in the day, I noticed that she had deleted my comment. And I was like, helpful? You got problems. I was like, she just mean. And so again, my space with God is on the treadmill. And as I'm running, the Lord spoke to my spirit. He said, you know why Annabella deleted your post, your comment? I said, why, Lord? Because she got a problem? He's like, no, she ain't got problems. Is that you have no rapport with her. You have no relationship whereby she should even listen to anything you have to say, one, take in what you have to say, two, and three, leave it on her Instagram page. And so I started to understand what rapport meant. And I think that sometimes we can have, as men, we can have a rapport with everybody else, but not one with self.
Yeah.
And it throws us into this different space where we're constantly playing catch up, trying to have a rapport with ourselves so that we can present ourselves in a certain way to the world. And it ends up being a mess, man. It just ends up being a mess.
And I think, the part that's really difficult is because we go through trauma and then you shift behavior because of the trauma.
Mm-hmm.
You will act like that's true to your essence.
Right.
It's really a response to trauma.
Right. You're anesthetizing because of the trauma. Yeah.
That's a behavioral issue. I think that the essence of a person is their authenticity. Yet we speak from our experience versus our authenticity, because our experience is the thing that captures people's attention, not our authenticity. So people spend their lifetime hiding their truth because their experience is what validates them in the streets. So when you have a guy that likes to talk about, or a girl likes to talk about who they used to be, well, I used to be a this and I used to be a that, that's what hypes people up and gets them connected to, whatever. Because see, I'm like, as you just said, Pastor, trauma, I can recognize that. But if we get back to what we were talking about earlier, when it comes to positive images, society is also aware of the power of putting positive images, especially of Black men, in the forefront. Because what it will do is it will strip that whole slave mentality that we have that's generationally built into us genetically from us and help us realize that we're really, really kings. Edgar Hoover had made a statement when asked what was the biggest danger to America. He said a unified Black people.
Right.
And so if you think about that, they understand what would happen if the light bulb about who you are comes on. Right. So does the enemy. And so people are excited about hearing Pastor Green preach on Sunday morning about his past, because I connect to that. But you being the man of God who you are, or D, you being award-winning, screenwriter now, that doesn't mean anything to me because I'm not you.
Right. So
we have glorified struggle versus position of discipline, focus, stick-to-itiveness, and righteousness and valor. Because we think that it's too hard to be those things, but you are those things along with your experiences. We pick and choose which one defines us in the moment. And then we get mad at people when they stand in the fact that, no, that was then, this is now, and I'm living in today.
Yeah. Well, I get that, but when you're really determining who you are, what is the essence of you, how do you sort through all that other stuff? I mean, how do you sort through, like, I'm from Philly, because some of your Philly identity is germane or it's so ingrained in you that it's probably you, but then some of it is just Philly. And it's really not necessarily key to your essence or your core. It's really just the culture you grow up with. I know for me, I grew up in the hood. And so there's certain aspects that is kind of trying to sort through what is true to my essence and what's more experiential for me, and sorting through what all that stuff is. How do y'all do that?
For me personally, I love that because I just came home from Philadelphia. I literally want to go back right now. Like, everything about the East Coast and everything about my city is me. The grit, the fight, the determination, the cheesesteak, the water ice, the family, the skyline, the subway, SEPTA, all of that is ingrained in me. What I separate are the things that don't align with my morals and my values. I'm from North Philly, the Darby area, and so there's a mixture of suburbia, but there's a mixture of hood. And so we all know the term code switching. Everyone's had to do it at some point in their life. So I understood the code, and I understand the code. Like, I am from the East Coast. It's ingrained in me. I feel it when I talk about it. When I go there, I'm like, yes, this is it. But I also understand why I'm there, who I am aside from this, because I live in Indiana. And so I'm taking the pieces that make me strong there, here, and wherever else I'm going. The essence of who I am is who God created me to be a man of valor, to be understanding, to be kind, to have moral compasses, to be balanced. But what I gained from my experience being from Philadelphia is to be strong, to be resilient, to be tough, but finding a way to do all those things without losing posture and purpose. And so as I'm sifting through those things, there's things about myself that I've had to put on the table. Like, okay, Tommy doesn't have an attitude, but I'm a wordsmith. And I'm not going to cuss you out, but I can definitely make you feel small. I know exactly how to do that with my education, with my experiences. I know how to make you invisible in front of everybody. Sifting through those things that don't bring, power, glory, or honor to who I say I am, or to who, more importantly, God says I am. And so I honor and I respect the experiences, whether they were here or whether they were there. But I'm also honest with myself about who I really am in the midst of all of that. Because if you're not careful, you start having identity conflicts. Like, you're on the East Coast, so now you want to act like they do. But then you come back to the Midwest, and now you're a Hoosier. I'm Talby 100% of the time, and it's a mixture of all of these things. I just know what presentation to give and when to give it.
I think for Black men particularly, there has to be a vision and an understanding of who you are and
Yes.
where you're
Yes.
going. If you don't know where you're going, me and my wife were having this conversation not too long ago, and the series that I'm working on, I wrote the pilot, and then I wrote the series finale, not the season finale, the series finale. So no matter how long that series runs, this is going to be the very last episode that you see. And so she was like, why are you doing it like that? I said, well, because here's the thing. If I want to say I want to go from Indianapolis to Miami, or if I want to go from Los Angeles to New York, if I don't know where I'm going, then I could be all over the place before I end up to where I need to be at. And so to set my sight on this is where I need to be at, then now there's a focus. For instance, when Jesus was in the Garden of Gethsemane, we've had this conversation before on this show, and I'm paraphrasing, and Peter's like, oh, you ain't got to do all that. Get behind me, Satan. I know where I'm going. I know what I'm designed to do. And so I can't deviate according to circumstance or what you say or what you think. I have to do this thing. And so I think as men, when we have a clear understanding and a definition of where we are going, it keeps us in that place. And so I don't know that it's necessary to have a separation of, who we are, so to speak, because we know where we're going. What the scriptures say, without a vision, a place
People
to be,
perish.
my people perish. And so I think, it's incumbent upon us to know where we're going, not necessarily how we get there. You know what I mean? Because I made a declaration on Instagram the other day, and I said I wanted to have Dave Chappelle and Donnell Rawlings in, my series. And then I followed up and said, that's none of my business. And people saw that and they were like, what you mean it's none of your business? I'm like, how they get attached to this series? I don't know. And I can't be concerned about that. What I am concerned about is this end product right here. And I think that's what we have to be concerned about as men, not so much the aesthetics of what it looks like as we get to that place.
Well, but I think part of the challenge to thine own self be true is even with the decisions you're making along the way, what is making those decisions? Like, I had a very sad case with somebody that was very ill. And so when I walk in the room, they were basically saying, Pastor, I want to die.
Wow.
And they were prepared for me to talk them out of it. And so when I'm having conversation, they kept like combating me like I was talking them out of it, and I wasn't. But I did say this because the person had gone blind with their illness. I said, if you were not blind, would we still be having this conversation?
That's a good one.
And so the person said, probably not. And then I said, then my goal for your life is to get you to the place where you make the decision to not be here and not the blindness. Because I felt like the blindness was making that decision. And so I said, so let's start attacking this blindness. Now, if that, I believe as a Christian, you have that prerogative. If you're ready to go home to be with the Father, you have that prerogative. You can make that decision within yourself, and it's not my job to talk you out of that. But that case, so you guys kind of see where I'm going, where there are certain aspects of our lives that even as we're making certain decisions, really understanding, is that really me making the decision? Or is this a situation or a circumstance or something else making this decision that's not really core to the essence of who I am.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That is a difficult place to be. I mean, it's like I'm in my own cognition. Life is a difficult place to be, but as you start trying to make decisions on, where you got to be and where you're going, and the separation of if is this my decision or is this God's will for me, it just gets so convoluted, man. It's like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, what to do?
I think that it's that's real. That's I like that, but that's why I was saying what I was saying. If I'm going with essence, I'm going with me. What's moral, what's right, even when it's difficult to do, or am I going to go with experience and what you see on the surface? Yeah. And so a lot of times decisions have to be made if we're going to be to our own self, be true. All of our decisions, good or bad, right, wrong, or indifferent, have self connected to them. And if we're going to go with our flesh doesn't want to experience anything but pleasure.
Right.
Because if we all had it our way, we would all be multimillionaires and we wouldn't have to do anything but get up and roll over and cash a check.
Stress-free.
But because of stress-free, right. Drama-free. But because of the wonderful first man, and the decision that he made to go against God, now I have to toil with the dirt every single day to obtain that which God promised me because he gave dominion to the enemy. And so because of that, the decisions that have to be made, and I agree with you, D, that's where the pressure comes in.
Yeah.
Because sometimes your good is not good enough. Sometimes even doing what God said doesn't profit you immediately. To confess with your mouth and believe in your heart sometimes brings you more problems than it does gains. Right. If we're honest, but that's the core of where God wants us. And that's the essence of it. If I chose to make my decisions based on my experiences or my circumstances, I wouldn't be where I am. A lot of times I have to sit down and make logical decisions that are, hey, in order to get here, I'm going to have to do this, this, and this. And I can't compromise with that. You can't maneuver around it.
But what now? I don't know. I might be at a different place in life right now because I'm starting to recognize like there's been stuff that has been driving me my whole life. That I would have said, well, that's just who I am. But now at this time, it's starting to sift out a little bit differently where I understand. And here's where I struggle a little bit is I think some of it is part of my essence, but I also have to be able to understand that essence can't always drive.
Right.
Because that essence will at moments betray me. So even being true to yourself at certain moments can betray you.
Yeah.
And so like I'm finding a lot of comfort now in starting to sift out what's driving. So when I'm facing a decision at a particular moment, I have to identify, okay, what's driving this decision?
Right.
And then is this what needs to be driving this decision at this moment?
Yeah. Yeah. It's such a hard place, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like it gets crazy because it's like there's nothing about us that is a surprise to God. Nothing. And so when you come to that understanding, okay, there's nothing about Dwayne Lloyd that God says, I can't believe he did that. No, God knew, God knows who I am before I make the decisions that I make. So if it's this weird quandary because it's like, if God's not surprised by the decisions that I make or the things that I do, then is it part of his plan? Right. You know what I'm saying?
It is. And that's one of the places, D, I came to that's like been a major revelation for me. I think I shared this on the show, so I don't want to go into the long story of it. but I was looking up the story of Gideon.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
and you know, when Gideon amassed this whole army and God keeps cutting down the army, and I'm like, why are you doing that? You know, if he's got 30,000 men, why don't you just let him roll in with the 30 and take what they need to take? And God keeps cutting it down, cutting it down, cutting it down, and I don't get it. This don't make sense to me. And then I went and I read like the opening chapter, and when you see Gideon for the first time, he's thrashing wheat in the wine press.
Mm.
And I said, okay, God, why is he doing wheat in the wine? And it was because they had these raiders that were coming down, and they would wait till the Israelites' harvest came in. Then the raiders would come in and take all their food that they worked all season for and burn the rest and leave them without food. So Gideon was good at being sneaky. And what I recognized was God chose Gideon to be the leader, but he knew he didn't have organizational skills for 30,000 men. This man knows how to be sneaky. Cut the army down to 300, which is sneaky side. And then if you look at how he won that battle, he said, okay, look, 100 of y'all go that way, 100 of y'all loop around them, and 100 of y'all come from this side, and we'll sneak up from 3 sides and scare them. And it was like, oh my God, God cut the situation down to match the person so he could be victorious.
Wow.
That's real.
And that hit me like, so is God doing that to me too? Is he putting me because of the essence of who I am and who I be, that he already knows if I put Henzi or Dwayne or Tavi in this situation, this is what they're going to do. So as long as they submit to me and be true to that essence, we're going to get the outcome that I designed all along.
Which in my mind, it goes to that end of Genesis when he says, he looked at the totality of his creation and said, it is very good.
Yeah.
Because he already knew what we was going to do. It's like, well, Lord, but you took me the long road on that one, man. You know what I'm saying? It's like, yo.
You had to do all that to figure out I was good, brother?
Yeah, exactly.
It's been a good discussion. Let's take about 30 or 40 seconds and kind of give a wrap up on what you feel about to thine own self be true.
You know what? My take on that is to, as best you can, because I know that we are all in the sum totality of our experiences, of the people we've talked to, of the things that we've done, and all those things. And as best you can, in order to be true to yourself, cultivate a working and a good rapport with God the Father through Jesus Christ. I mean, because what will happen, you'll find invariably, is that if you don't create the rapport, then there will be people who will have a say-so in who you become, and their say-so may not necessarily be who God called you to be.
Being true to yourself means exactly that. Being true to yourself. If you don't like it, if it doesn't feel good, if it doesn't make sense, be honest with God about it. He knows the way. He's the Ancient of Days. He's the great I am. He's the one that will be there, has been there, will always be there. It is important, it is imperative to make sure that you understand why you do what you do and who you are. And let those things guide you into truth. And sometimes truth can hurt. Self-evaluation and self-criticism are not always negative if the outcome is a blessing.
Yeah. For me, there's a scripture, and I think the concept gets diluted because of in the Bible, there is a chapter break in the story. And it's in Matthew 3. And at the very end of 3 is where Jesus gets baptized. And the voice of God defines him. He says, "This is my beloved son, in whom I'm well pleased." And I was puzzled at it, because I'm like, well, Jesus ain't done nothing. So why is God proud of you?
Wow.
And why is he defining? He hadn't done anything yet. But in 4, when he runs into the temptation of Satan, the first question is, if you be the Son of God, then do this. And it dawned on me, God was saying, I must define him before the world tries to define him.
Amen. Amen.
And so, to thine own self be true. The only person that really gets to define you is God. He is the creator and the originator. And the more we get into relationship with God, the more God will reveal who God designed us to be.
Amen. Amen. Amen.
All right. Well, we want to thank you all for checking us out. Once again, 3 generation of Black men. We know if we keep talking it out, we'll work it out. So join us next week on The Code.